last video I discussed regarding the strategies how to deal with the written examination as well as the subjective questions for the ILI LLM entrance examination. Today in this video I'll be basically focusing upon the interview process. If you're selected for the written examination and you make into the merit list, which is finalized out of 180 marks, and if you are in the candidates who are selected for VIVA VOCE, so you have to report to the ILI on set particular dates for the interview. So I'll be dealing the process, how it's done, and what all you can expect the questions that can be raised to you, and how you can prepare, and what things we should keep in mind while appearing for the ILI interview. So basically, if you make into the merit list for the ILI, you are given certain dates on which you have to report. There are 2 days prescribed for the event. One date is fixed for the general candidates, while the another date is fixed for the reserved candidates of all the categories, be it OBC, EWS, PWD, SC, ST. So that is the hierarchy setup day wise on which the candidates are called. The timings are from 10 to 3 it goes, but sometimes the process gets delayed because of interview being long or short. So the process is not accurate to the time, but yeah, the interview will for a particular candidate last around 5 to 10 minutes. It's an idle time. However, certain students, even which whom I have met, and even for myself, I can say our interview was short, yet it was a crisp and good one. For ILI interview, as I have seen the merit list which was made after the interview results, the marking which was given to the candidates was I felt it was an average marking, because the marks which you see in the merit list, they are based on the similar patterns only, like highest is gone to the 15 marks and many of them have got 13, 14, 11 like this. So there was a similar pattern on which the things were made. So coming to the interview process, first of all, whenever you fill the ILI LLM form, there when you mention your LLB and degrees like 10 and 12th LLB, they ask you subjects. So please be careful while mentioning the subjects, as I can see in my case and some of my friends also have appeared. When we went for the interview, actually in interview there were 5 teachers. It was like a 5 teachers panel sitting before us. But when I went for the interview, one teacher went out, so I had 4 teachers who were sitting to interview me. So basically, first of all, when you fill that form, which as I'm telling you about the ILI LLM entrance form, and you fill it, mention your subjects in LLB, try to mention those subjects which you are confident, apart from the subjects which you will be mentioning, because many times because people who are sitting for taking your interview, they have a particular form in which you have mentioned your subject. So generally, they try to ask you about those subjects only, and certain times it also happen the teacher may ask question out of the subject which you have mentioned based on your interest. Also he may inquire you like which subjects you are interested in or which subjects draw your fancy. So basically on those subjects also questions can be addressed to you. Since I was the student of international honors from Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National University Lucknow, I had studied international law in my 9th and 10th semester. So I clearly mentioned my in LLB that form my subjects as international honors. So as I went in the interview room, they had asked me, you are from Lohia and you have taken international honors, and as Manoj sir is the director of ILI and he is a well-profound teacher of international law, so he addressed all the questions to me. My entire interview session was addressed by Manoj sir. So he basically addressed me basic questions like what is the organization dealing with the maintenance of international peace and security. He asked me question regarding the Uniting Peace Resolution, United Nations Peace General Assemblies, that peace resolution is there. So on those questions were addressed to me. Apart from that, certain articles based questions from UN Charter were asked to me. The situation of collective responsibility, what is collective responsibility and what is collective security, concepts of such detail were also asked to me. He also addressed questions regarding what is difference in de facto and de jure recognition, and certain friends of mine were also addressed question like what is difference between treaty and protocol, and how you have to deal difference in the ICC and ICJ statute, what's a basic contention, what are the grounds of criminal jurisdiction, how it's different in both the cases, how ICJ takes up the cases, and what are the and one question where I was stuck was basically the question in which he addressed me what are the entry 13 and 14 of the list 1. I was not aware with that, so I clearly answered that, so I'm not aware with this question. So later on when my interview was over, I cross-checked the question addressed to me. Generally entry 13 and 14 deals with the treaty making powers, so therefore though it was a question of constitution, it was linked with international law, therefore he addressed that particular question to me. Also one question was addressed like when Security Council takes action, like what collective measures and whether these actions are taken by Security Council for maintenance of peace and security, on what grounds. the actions are taken. As we know, there are Article 41 and 42, according to which there are procedures mentioned at how when the forces should be used and when non-force measures are there. Apart from that, how UNSC enforces these grounds and how they can take their actions, like what actions they take. For example, Pacific blockade, embargo, trade sanctions, diplomatic sanctions are there. So basically on these terms questions were also addressed to me, question based on asylum and extradition. So these were certain 7 to 8 questions were there around international law to me. But since you all know that ILI offers LLM only in the human rights law and your constitution, IPR and criminal law. So one question was also addressed to me, what's the difference in human rights and international humanitarian law. As human rights, every person I guess who will be watching this video is well aware with the human rights, the law dealing with it. But international humanitarian law basically deals with the situation of armed conflict. So that was a basic difference which I also told them. So these were questions, but later on he also addressed to me that you are international law honor student, but in ILI we don't offer international law. So which particular branch you are also interested? So I told him that I'm also interested in constitutional law and I had a command over constitutional law. So he just then focused some questions also on constitutional law, like what is the pardoning power of the president, which article mentions for the same, the terms mentioned therein. According, he also asked me article 368. So these certain questions basically you can prepare. Now coming to some other questions that certain candidates told me that they have been inquired, like one of my friend from BHU, he has also gave the interview and he has mentioned constitutional and environment law as a subject in that particular form. So he was asked questions pertaining to this environment law, cases like MC Mehta cases and Kamal Nath case, followed state of Bihar versus Subhas Kashyap case. So these cases were addressed to him, and environmental or certain concepts of like precautionary principle, polluter pay principle, sustainable development. These forms are key genesis that you should be well aware of. And from constitutional law, you can also expect basic constitutional questions like FR and DPSP should be on tips. The landmark cases of those, like that friend of mine was also addressed, which like he was stuck in the case of Kameshwar Prasad versus state of Bihar. So you should be well aware which cases are dealing with which doctrines, because constitution also has a lot of doctrines, especially in article 13. So you have to be very aware with that, those doctrines. And apart from that, article 245 246, those doctrines of pith and substance, territorial nexus. So all these doctrines and the landmark cases should be on your tips, because generally if you see constitution, only certain portions are the area on which the teachers inquire you in the interview. Basically the FR, DPSP, preamble, your president and Supreme Court and president, only the article sections is generally asked. Then comes the most important is the amendment emergency, and last not the least is the center state relation. So you have to be well focused on these topics. Coming to the criminal law, there were certain questions that have been addressed regarding the bail. As you all know, these time recent case laws also a lot of focusing on bail and inherent powers. So many questions were addressed for regarding section 436 to 439 of CRPC, and certain offences of IPC were also asked. So try to read a bare act of IPC well before going for the interview. So these were the tips I would like to share, and the certain questions which were addressed to me and some of my friends. One question which certain people I saw were not able to answer, and they were discussing was that what's the difference in constitution and constitutionalism. So you should have a key knowledge of this, like constitutionalism basically deals with the limited governance and it's a system of like checks and balance. So try to have such conceptual knowledge also, because being a aspirant of LLM, they expect you that you are having a certain research also and you have key knowledge of these basic aspects. So I believe certain questions which I will be telling you today, they'll surely help you, because in YouTube also when I was searching for the interview tips and certain questions, there was not much video, but I hope after this particular video you will be very in a position that you can understand which questions can be addressed to you. So have a good knowledge on the basic subjects of PIL, Juris, Consti and your criminal law. So these forms the key genesis, because if you go for the international law, Manoj sir is there, he will surely ask you questions on these aspects, and the current Russia-Ukraine conflict also was a key genesis on which I was asked. So these were the certain questions which I wanted to share. And for other tips like for how the exam is to be done, I've already uploaded a video, kindly watch that video. Thank you.